This special edition of Hannity. Now, unfortunately, tonight, law enforcement is continuing to be targeted across the country, destroying department morale in major cities, especially amid left-wing calls to defund and dismantle the police. For example, earlier this month in Buffalo, police were mowed down by a man driving a car. A police officer in Las Vegas was shot in the head and is now paralyzed from the neck down. Another officer was ambushed in California, and a sheriff's deputy was murdered in the line of duty in Mississippi. Now, in response to this targeting and dangerous environment, officers in places like Atlanta appear to be calling in sick in a so-called blue flu to protest a lack of support from local leaders. And across the country, officers are beginning to rally around their own to try and combat this growing anti-police climate. Joining me now for a reaction, former NYPD Commissioner Bernie Kerik and Fox News contributor, former NYPD officer and Secret Service agent Dan Bongino. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us tonight. What would it feel like, Dan, to be out on the street and not have the back of the city council, the mayor, the people that are in charge, that are putting out the budgets, and they're just silent when these officers are getting mowed down and ridiculed and everything in between?
Yeah, I mean, the cowardice displayed by these political so-called leaders, I won't even call them that, is just beyond gross. I mean, it's pretty disgusting. You elect people to lead in a time of crisis, right, Jason? I mean, that's when it matters. Really, I mean, if you only needed leaders when everything was all flowery and peaches and cream all the time, then what the hell's the point? You need them to stand up when things are tough. And, you know, I testified recently up on Capitol Hill, and I told a quick story about how I spoke at a police banquet in Alamogordo, New Mexico once. And one of the women there, who was really terrific, she was the spouse of a police officer. And she said, Jason, the most powerful sound in the world for the families of police officers is the sound of Velcro at night. Well, Velcro is the sound, as Bernie well knows, of body armor when it comes off your body, meaning that police officers come home safely at night. Think about that. It's not just the cops who are being left behind. It's the families, too. It's really disgraceful. These leaders need to stand up now. The cops need you now more than ever.
Bernie, you ran one of the largest police departments, the largest police department, I believe, in the country. Unfortunately, you had to deal with some of the families who had officers were killed. What do you say to those families who send their loved ones, the husband, the wife, the brother, the sister, whoever it might be, out onto the streets at night? What do you tell those families in today's climate? What do you share with those people?
You know what, Jason, thank you is never enough. There are no words of gratitude that you could really share or say that would mean enough because they know. Those families, like Dan just talked about, they know what it's like to have loved ones hurt, to have loved ones die in the line of duty. I had to bury 23 cops that worked for me in the aftermath of 9/11. Nobody knows better than I do. But I want to touch on something, Jason, if you will. You know what? I'm disgusted with the leadership, with the mayors, with the governors, with the city council. But I have to tell you, I am probably more disgusted with the police executives, the chiefs, the police directors, the police commissioners around the country that don't have the courage to stand up to the mayors and tell them when they're wrong, to tell them they need to support the men and women under their command. They need to lead by example. Those police executives, they should do their job, what they're sworn to do. And if they can't do their job, they can't stand up to the mayors and the city council, then quit and let somebody else go in there and do the job that has to be done.
Dan, react to that. What Bernie Kerik said about as you mentioned, the so-called leadership here and what's going on.
He just nailed it. Bernie just absolutely nailed it. There's an opportunity here for police managers to set an example and say, we are not doing that. What you're asking us to do, you political frauds out there, so-called political leaders, is wrong. Bernie was in, I believe, a plainclothes unit. I saw your picture on social media today, Bernie. The commissioner in New York City is disbanding a unit, Jason, anti-crime units and precincts, which the majority of self-observed crime by police officers, comes from anti-crime units. Jason, this isn't hard to figure out. People don't commit crimes in front of uniformed police officers. When you put police officers in plain clothes, criminals then commit crimes and get locked up in front of the cops. Bernie was in one of those units. You're disbanding them, the commissioner in New York now? Why? You know they work. Give me a break. He should have resigned in protest, like Bernie just said. Instead, he took the cheap and easy. He did the easy thing, not the right thing.
Bernie, what's going to happen? I think there were 600 officers. They're not even going to have these undercover or plainclothes policemen out there. What's going to happen on the streets in New York?
You know what, Jason? I was in anti-crime. I was in Midtown South in Times Square. You know what? Those cops, they're like chameleons. They get into the communities. They can get into places that nobody else can walk can go. They get to see what happens firsthand. And their job, their sole function in their job is to look for guns, robberies, respond to hot jobs in progress, dangerous jobs. They're the ones responsible for taking the majority of guns off the streets of New York, and they disbanded and sent back to precincts 600 of them. I have no idea why, whose bright idea this was, but I can tell you one thing. The communities that's going to suffer are the ones already with the highest crime rate, the highest violent crime, the highest murder, and it's only going to spike and get worse.
Okay, I've got 30 seconds for each of you on a tight timeline. Talk to the families whose loved ones are out on the streets tonight. What's your message to those men and women, those families, those kids?
God bless you. I don't really have anything more to say. There's nothing I can say, Jason, to take the anxiety out of their hearts. They live with it every night. But you're the finest. You're that thin line between civilization and chaos. You're there. God bless what you do every day.
Bernie?
I say stay strong, and don't forget, there's many more people out there that love you, that support you, that respect you, and that will be there for you than these lunatics like Black Lives Matter and Antifa and others.
God bless them. I got to tell you, they're dealing with a tough situation. Bernie, Dan, thank you both for your service, and thank you for joining us here tonight. Thank you. All right, when we come back, more on the Supreme Court's disastrous decision on DACA and what